Let's get the lead out of the soil. As a quick recap, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about lead. Well, lead is a toxic heavy metal, which means it can be poisonous, and it can come from paint, old pipes, gasoline, solder, and a lot of other sources. Lead is a compound that binds very tightly to clay in soil as well as organic matter, and it is a non-soluble substance unless it's in an acidic environment. The place where we are trying to remediate the soil is the Southeast Missouri Lead Mining District. This is an area of Missouri that is one of the biggest lead mining areas of the world. At one point, it was the largest lead mining area of the world. So it is full of lead that has run off from mines as well as that has gotten into the environment through the refining process. And the last recap is that of the soil. The soil in this part of the world is the Altasol soil. This soil is soil that goes through a fairly intense amount of weathering, as you can see in its location on the US map. It is composed of a lot of clay and just a little bit of humus, so the non-living organic material. It is an udic moisture regime, which means it's in the humid or subhumid climate, and in this case it happens to be humid because it is the Midwest, and the soil is slightly acidic. When thinking about can remediation happen in this soil, things to think about are the fact that hyperaccumulators are able to grow there, which is a plant that can take out a toxin, in this case a heavy metal. In altisols, there is a lack of water filtration, so that means that the lead in this case is stuck inside the soil, so it makes it very targetable. Downside of this is it can take a long time to work because it is that clay when the lead binds very tightly to it, so it does become a little bit tricky to get it out. So what are we going to use to get rid of this lead? Well, we're going to use common ragweed. This is a non-hydrophyte weed, which means it grows on land, not in wetlands. It's an invasive species that is found all over Missouri, as well as pretty much all over the country, as well as into other countries. And it is a huge lead hyperaccumulator. Well, where are we going to find this ragweed? Its typical environment is very broad. Generally, it blooms from June to October in North America, so that's when you'll see it. It grows in non-wetland areas, but it grows in all types of sun levels, so sunny, partly shaded, shaded, as well as all soil types, so very much clay soil, maybe loamy soil or sandy soil. It grows in all different types of soil. And it grows in soil that has a low fertility, meaning not really high quality soil, so not a lot of nutrients, maybe not a lot of topsoil, things like that. And ragweed is an annual, so that means it is seeded, grows, and dies within one growing season. But one thing about ragweed is that if a seed remains ungrown, so it doesn't plant and sprout, it can last throughout the winter because it's full of oils that allows it to not be destroyed when it freezes. So will ragweed work? I think so. It is a lead hypoaccumulator, so it takes the lead from the soil and pulls it into the plant. And when it gets into the plant, it accumulates into the leaves. You might be thinking that's maybe a problem because things might eat these weeds, but they don't. This is a very low level animal food source, so generally these aren't being eaten. Ragweed has an extensive root system, so not only could it hyperaccumulate, so pull into the plant, it could potentially have the rhizoremediation aspects of having a lot of root access. Also, this is a very intense plant where it can grow in just about any conditions, any amount of soil, any light. It grows in warm temperatures, and there's warm temperatures generally into early summer through mid-fall. Another thing is it is drought resistant. So even if it does drought, and number one, it's in clay, so there's going to be some moisture in it, but the plant doesn't even care. And it can grow in low fertility, so it doesn't have to have any particular nutrients in it to stay alive. It just is there. But some issues with ragweed and using it as a remediation source is the first idea is that it's an invasive species. And one of the ideas of an invasive species is that it generally takes over an area. So if it's there, it pushes out native plants. It takes nutrients from native plants. And it's also a major allergen. So if there is allergies had by people who have, say, seasonal allergies, this is a big one. So by incorporating ragweed, it might take over the plants that are already there. But remember that if it's going to end up growing, the soil is going to have low fertility anyway, so there's probably not high quality plants, as well as a major allergen. But again, something to consider is that every year it dies. So although it's an allergen, it doesn't mean it needs to come back the next year. So if one year we have really bad allergies, it doesn't mean the following year is going to have that same amount of pollen in the air. So is this a good choice? I think, yeah, it is. The fact that ragweed can grow anywhere and in any condition is a benefit to it. The fact that it has a huge root system means it's going to come into contact with a lot of lead. The fact that it accumulates into the leaves but is not a food source for animal means that it can be cut down and disposed of by getting it out of the earth and not backing into an animal. Is it okay that it's an invasive species? Yes, because it only grows in places where the soil is not ideal anyway, so the plants that would be growing in those areas would not be high quality plants. Yes, it's a bummer that this is a major allergen, but the fact that it can be used for one season, remediate the soil, and not have to be planted again means we are taking out toxins that are highly negative to animals, to humans, to children, is really, really a benefit for this type of remediation.